Hey, greetings. Michael Didier here. We're going to be talking about the feasts of Yehovah today. One of my most favorite things to talk about, the feasts of Yehovah. The holy convocations, the meetings that we have with Yehovah on a regular basis. There's a lot to be seen in those. I think it's interesting the order that he gives us for those feasts. But before we get started, let's just do a quick review. I want to make this very quick because this is a lot of information that we need to cover in our chapter 23 today of Leviticus. Last week we did 21 and 22. We talked about this. I'm just going to use my things on the side here. We talked about who the priests can mourn for. Remember, they said for the regular priest, it's a father, mother, sons, daughters, and an unmarried sister. That was pretty much it. Sons, daughters, brother, his virgin sister at that. The high priest was only able to mourn his, let's find out what it was. I'm forgetting right offhand. His father and his mother. His father and his mother. Wow. You know, neither one of these cases did it mention their women. How about their women? Can they mourn for their women? Remember, the priests, Aaron and his sons, when two of the sons died, even the sons who were alive still were not able to mourn their brother. Yehovah had to keep them clean because they had service to do to the rest of the nation. I wonder how it would be. I still wonder how it would be for their women. Seems like they would mourn their women. But who knows? Bone of your bone, flesh of your flesh. I would think you would mourn your woman. We don't know. They don't mention the women. Isn't that interesting? We talked about who they can marry. The priests, the regular priests, it says they shall not take a woman, I'm looking at verse 7, who is a harlot, a defiled woman. Kind of the same thing. One woman gets paid, the other woman doesn't get paid, but she's still sleeping around. Nor shall they take a woman, it says divorced from her husband. We said that as driven away, a woman driven away from her man. So who could they marry? It appears that they can marry the virgins and they can marry the widows. I looked for a place in the Torah. I couldn't find it, but I just feel like it's there, that the priests are able to marry the widows of other priests. I don't remember if I found that or not. And I thought if I had found it, I would have stuck it here for us to see. But it's not here right now. So I don't know that I did find it. The high priest, on the other hand, look what it says about the high priest. It says he shall take a woman in her virginity. A betula. Got to take a betula. Can't take anybody else. A widow, or a divorced woman, or a defiled woman, or a harlot. These he shall not marry. Thought it was interesting. The next verse, he says, nor shall he profane his posterity among his people, for I am Yehovah. For I, Yehovah, sanctify him. Does having a woman who has had another man at all defile his posterity? Wow. Pretty interesting. Here's some other things that we talked about in the same chapter. the priest's daughter convicted of whoredom. She defiles herself. She defiles her father. Again, talking about the high priest and who he could mourn, who he could marry. And then it said the priests that have blemishes, they say blemishes, mums. Remember we were talking about mum? A short leg, a bad eye, a bad ear. Those were mums. And it kept the priests from serving at the altar of Yehovah. And it also kept the priest from serving inside the tabernacle by the veil. Here it is. He shall not go near the veil or approach the altar. So the altar that we're talking about, of course, is the bronze altar. But it looks to me like maybe he doesn't go in the tabernacle at all. Could be. Could be. But there's other things that he can do in the court, the courtyard. Perhaps it's dealing with moving firewood or helping men handle their slaughters, making sure that the correct animal is being brought for an olah versus a shalamim versus a kata'ah, helping them to cut it up and teaching them how to cut it up. There could be lots of things that these priests can do still for Yehovah. At any rate, we went to the next chapter, and that was 22, and we talked about the priests and their uncleanliness must abstain from the holy things. In other words, a priest who has become unclean can't eat, can't touch, can't be near the altar if he's unclean. Don't do it. Well, Yehovah doesn't know. Yeah, he does know. I'm embarrassed. I don't want my friends to know I'm unclean today. So you just go ahead and do it? No, you can't do it. You just have to buck up and say, I can't work today. He wants clean men, tehor men, working at his altar. He'll defile not only he not only defiles himself, but he's going to defile the meat that he's putting on the altar for the Israelites. Okay, we talked about a vow offering, an offering. Vow offering, this is really one of the few places where you could talk about an offering. They use this word offering all the time, and it's usually an added word, but for korban, I think offering works really well. So when we're talking about a korban, an offering that is a shalamim, something that we're going to eat, he says it's got to be without blemish. We see without blemish all the time, remember? It always says without blemish when it says tamim, but this time it says tamim and mum. Are we to understand it's without blemish and without blemish? No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. But translating tamim as without blemish really puts another false image into our minds. We've got to stop that. We've got to understand whole and alive. All these animals are being brought to Yehovah, brought to Yehovah's face, whole and alive. They are going to be the fat. If it's a burnt offering, the whole animal, that's the sweet aroma that goes up to Yehovah. All right. Well, we saw that some of these animals for the vow korban, they have to be without blemish. And then we talked briefly, again, we've seen it before in 7. We've seen it in 4 of Leviticus. We talked about the law of eating the slaughtered shalamim. In this case, the slaughtered thanks. Todah. The slaughtered todah, I think is how they actually say it. It's kind of interesting. Okay, let's go to Leviticus 23. It says, and Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Israel's seed. You know, some of you are going to be listening to me for the very first time. You hear Israel's seed, you read Children of Israel, you think, what's up with you, Michael Didier? Why can't you read? I'm trying to help us understand who these men are. Yehovah did not let Israel, those people called Israel, the sons of Jacob and the multi-generations of Jacob, out of Egypt until they became Ezra men. We're going to see at the very end of this chapter that these B'nai Israel, I call them Israel's seed, some call them better, sons of Israel. It's better, but it's not good. It's still not good because we're thinking all men, and it's not all men because we don't understand who Israel is. Israel is the Ezra men. Thou shalt have one law for the native born. That's the Ezra. Ha-Ezra and Ha-Ger, the Ger who dwell with them. That's who the laws are for. Can't argue with that. But we have to understand that both the Ezra and the Ger are men. Men with different statuses. The status of an Ezra man is the Chesed of Yehovah. Gather together my kind. Gather together Chesed, it says in Psalms 50 verse 5. Those who have cut covenant with me by slaughter. We're talking about Israel's seed, the Ezra men. We're going to see it at the end of this chapter. It's going to be the Ezra men, Israel's seed, the native born who dwell in tents. Ooh, it's really interesting to see how these all fit together. He says, speak to Israel's seed and say to them, the feasts of Yehovah, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations. These are my feasts. Convocations. This is Mikra. Mikra. Think of Mikra as appointed times, meetings with the Creator of all things. This is the day that we meet with Him, and He's going to list these days. When are these days? We're going to see in the scriptures that these are the days that Yehovah speaks to us. The new moons, the Sabbaths, the feast days are the times that Yehovah speaks to His people. Here's the first one. 6 days shall work be done. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest. A holy convocation. There it is again. A holy mikra. You shall do no work on it. It is a Sabbath of Yehovah in all your dwellings. 6 days you shall do your work. You know, I think we forget. Who's he talking to? You're not talking to the ladies, not talking to the servants, not talking to the ger. He's talking to Israel's seed. We can see it here. Look at this. I said, who is you that Yehovah is talking to? Well, we just saw it speak to Israel's seed. Well, who are they? Is the women Israel's seed? Is the children Israel's seed? Are the servants Israel's seed? How about the ger? Look what it says. 6 days, really it says 6 days, thou shall labor and do all thy work. He's talking to an individual man. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yehovah, thy Elohim. In it thou shalt do no work. Thou, nor thy son. It's not thy son. It's not the thou. Nor thy daughter, nor thy male servant, nor thy female servant, nor thy cattle, nor thy ger, who is within thy gates. Who do the gates belong to? They belong to Israel's seed. Only Israel's seed gets to own the land. But 6 days. Hear that? 6 days you shall do your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest. There is a cycle going on here. 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6 rest, 6 rest, 6 rest. Over and over and over again since the creation of time. We've been doing the Sabbath. Now, we got a problem. We got people out there that are using what they call the lunar Sabbath. I want you to understand what's going on with this lunar Sabbath. I think most people don't have a clue. And they don't see that it violates the very premise that he says, 6 days you shall work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest. You know, all over the world, in different languages, instead of using Saturday on their calendar, it says Sabbat or Shabbat or Sabbath or some form of Sabbath on their calendar. This has been going on a very long time, but it's just recently, probably within the last 25 years, that we've been talking about a lunar Sabbath. Here's what I wrote on it. The lunar Sabbath, people ignore the current weekly 7-day cycle in use today and use the moon to determine when the new weeks begin and end. What are they doing? They're taking the new moon and they're making the new moon the beginning of the next week. I'll show you how it works. So rather than observing the Sabbath on the seventh day of reoccurring, uninterrupted 7 days, lunar Sabbatarians restart a weekly 7-day cycle at the beginning of each lunar month. A lunar month follows the phases of the moon, and since the lunar cycle is 29.53059 and more days long, some months have 29-day months, or 29 days, 29-day months, I guess, and some have a 30-day month. We see it all the time. There are no months that are going to be 28 days. There are no months that are going to be 31 days. They're always going to be 29 or 30. So we know if we don't see the new moon on the 29th day, it defaults to the 30th day. We see that all the time. The lunar Sabbatarians are keeping Yehovah's Sabbath in the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 29th. And you say, well, that's every 7 days. No, it's not. It's not. Look at this. This is what they're doing. I tried to put it out for you so you can see it. Remember, Yehovah goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Unending. Here's how they do it. They have 1. The first day, they make a Sabbath. So then the 8th day is going to be the Sabbath. The 15th day, the 22nd day, the 29th day. But now we got a problem. Because it's been going 6-1. Actually, it's going 1-6, 1-6, 1-6. Not 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. Now we got a problem. If it's a 29-day month, we got a Sabbath on the 29th day and on the first day. How does that work? 6 days you shall do your work. 7th day you shall rest. Now we got a Sabbath 2 days in a row. On a 30-day month, we have a Sabbath on the 29th. We work on the 30th. But now we're having a Sabbath again on the 1st. How does that work with 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1? You see what's going on here? This is polluted. It violates the rhythm that Yehovah has created. 6-1, 6-1, 6-1, 6-1. He says, these are the feasts of Yehovah, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. Who is he talking to? You. You, okay? You isn't you. For most of you, I read you as me my whole life. But I wasn't the you. I wasn't the thou. You got to make yourself the thou. That's the whole point of becoming a ger. A Gentile leaves the kingdom of his birth. He becomes a ger, joins himself to Israel, the native born. Native born. Who are they native born of? A spiritual kingdom. We see it at Passover. The ger draws near, keeps the Passover, and becomes the Ezra man. We see it all the time. These are the feasts which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. He says on the 14th day of the first month, at twilight, is Yehovah's Passover. Remember, Yehovah's Passover is a 7-day feast. We are going to slaughter it just before it begins on the 14th day. We're going to eat it on the 15th day at evening. Right after dusk is when our day is going to begin. And we're going to eat it. Well, actually, we'll get to that. Let's go on here. 14th day. Passover is the beginning of the feast of unleavened bread. They are both one. We don't talk about unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, without talking about Passover. The Passover is the start of that. Passover is when a man enters into covenant with Yehovah and becomes his son, his heir, his spiritual seed. It is the first of his feasts. All the feasts are for the Son. Do you hear that? The feasts are for Israel, the appointed time that we're coming to meet with Yehovah. Why 7 days? Why 7 days? Why is the feast 7 days? Why do we keep the Sabbath on a 7-day cycle? What is going on with that? I think, this possibly represents the 7,000 years in which men dwell on the earth and learn to keep the sin out of their lives. The 8th day is going to be a new heavens and a new earth. Actually, did we do the, these are the feasts of Yehovah, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at their appointed time. I want to go back because I want to talk about these 3 times each year. 3 times each year. There's the Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Feasts that all our males are to attend. Let's take a look at it. I've already got it set apart. Zakor is thy males. Actually, this is Zakor with the vav, or the kaf at the end of it. It says thy Zakor, thy Zakor. He's talking to Israel's seed, but he's talking about thy, each one of thy males. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast to me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days as I commanded thee, at the time appointed in the Aviv month. That's not the name of the month. It's the month that has the Aviv. For in it thou came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty at the feast of harvest. The feast of harvest, Shavuot. The first fruits of thy labor which you have sown in the field. The feast of ingatherings. The feast of ingatherings is the feast of Sukkot at the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in the fruit of thy labor from the field. 3 times in the year, all thy males. Did you hear that? Who's all thy males? First you got to understand who the thy is. If all the males are the thy, then it doesn't make any sense at all, does it? All thy males shall appear before the master. Thy males. Talking to Israel's seed, who are thy males? thy sons? Could it be servants, even male servants? It might be. I wonder. Certainly is the Ger and their sons who dwell with us. They are thy males. Says, shall appear before the master. The master, you know what? The Lord is how this is probably going to be translated in most Bibles. It's Ha Adonai. Ha Adonai. Practically everywhere in the Bible where it says Yehovah, it says the Lord, which this is correctly translated as the master, or you could say the Lord. The master. I like the master. It's less confusing. The master, Yehovah, Elohim of Israel. There's only 3 times in the whole Bible that it actually says the master, the Lord, Yehovah. This is all 3 of them right in this particular note. This is the first one. 3 times a year, all thy males, again, thy Zikor, shall appear before Yehovah, thy Elohim, in the place which he chooses, in the feast of unleavened bread, the feast of weeks, the feast of tabernacles. So where it was saying up here, Feast of Harvest, we're talking about the Feast of Weeks. When we're talking about the Feast of Ingatherings, we're talking about the Feast of Tabernacles. And they shall not appear before Yehovah empty-handed. Here is one of a few times where Yehovah ever mentions women. Do women come to the feasts? Boy, I'll tell you, that is a sore subject. Do women go to war with Yehovah? When Yehovah gave us his 10 Commandments, were women there? I think it's all the same situation. Women are not coming to these feasts, except this one time every 7 years. Look what it says. This is in Deuteronomy 31. It says, and Moses commanded them, saying, at the end of 7 years, at the appointed time, in the year of release, at the Feast of Tabernacles, every 7 years, when all Israel comes before Yehovah, thy Elohim, in the place where he chooses. Remember, all Israel is all the Israel men, not the ladies, not the Ger, not everybody else. They don't normally come. When all Israel comes to appear before Yehovah thy Elohim in the place which he chooses, thou shalt read this law before all Israel in their hearing. Gather the people together. Now he's going to tell us who to gather together. Once every 7 years. He says, the Enoshim, the men, the Nashim, the women. You know what? You don't see the woman hardly anywhere in the Torah. When we left Egypt, there was 600,000 men and children. Tough. This is the word they used right here, tough. This says the tough, ha-tough. Gather together the people, the men, the women, the children, the tough, ha-tough, the Ger, ha-Ger, who is within thy gates, that they may hear, that they may learn to fear Yehovah, thy Elohim, and carefully observe all the words of this law, so that their sons who do not know the law may hear and learn to fear Yehovah. It doesn't say so they do it. It says so that their sons who do not know, I put the law, who do not know, may hear and learn to fear Yehovah thy Elohim. Oh, I guess this is your Elohim. As long as ye live in the land which ye shall cross the Jordan to possess. This is when we're in the land even. Once every 7 years at the time of release, all the people will gather with the men, the women, the children, the ger. We talked about the 14th day. Here's the 15th day. And the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. To Yehovah, 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. 7 days we're going to eat unleavened bread. Look what it says here. I'm going to go back to my notes. This is Exodus 12. On the first month, on the 14th day of the month, at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. Our days start in the evening. We are going to eat from the 15th day. Here it is right here. The 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. We're going to eat it for 7 days. The evening of the 15th day is the 14th day, right after it gets dark. So we have 15, beginning of the 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 7 days to the evening of the 7th day. We're going to eat unleavened bread. You know, there's a lot of people who say, when does Yehovah's month begin? They want to use the no moon, conjectured moon. It's the time when the moon is exactly between the earth and the sun. The time when we can't see, nobody can see the moon. There's no moon. But look at what it says here. Many ask, where does Torah say anything about a new moon? I say it's found right here in this verse. Let's take a look at it. It says, and on the 15th day of the same month. This word month right here is the word Kodesh. Look what the word Kodesh means. Kodesh, here it is right here. It says new moon. By implication, a month, a new month. Kadesh, new. Renew. Yeah, you know, this is what it is. It's not a new moon at all, really. It's a renewed moon. We're starting the cycle all over again from day 1 to day 29 or 30. We look for that moon, and that's what keeps us on the microcycle, the appointed time, that cycle. We want to all be in tune with Yehovah. We use it, the sighting of the new moon, from Israel. Really, why? Yehovah is not there anymore, but that's a place where we can focus on so that we're all on the same cycle. Otherwise, every month, people will be on different cycles. We've got to work it out so that we're all meeting at the same time with Yehovah worldwide. I think of it as, in a sense, what do we talk about? Greenwich Mean Time. We're talking about Israel Mean Time. It's seen in Israel, and from there on, that's the day that our day is going to begin. The new moon is going to begin. Keeps us all on that cycle. When we talk about a nation born in the day, we're talking about Passover, going from Passover. We slaughter our Passover. What did it say? At twilight. At twilight on the 14th day, the beginning of the 15th day. And that cycle all year round to get to that twilight period on the 14th day, all around the earth is going to be an hour off all as we go around. So by the time we do a whole cycle, we've got a nation born in the day. This is what it's talking about when we look at Isaiah 56. How can a nation be born in the day? On the first day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work on it. This is a day that we're meeting with Yehovah. A holy convocation. An appointed time. The first day and the last day. But you shall, here I better read it this way. You shall bring fire to Yehovah 7 days. You know, I love how Yehovah teaches us his ways. He does it piece by piece. Here a little, there a little, precept upon precept. How's it go? Precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. We can't base our doctrines, I'm guilty of it, on one verse. We've got to look at the whole and see how it all fits together. This is how we get into problems with when the day starts. This is how we get into problems with, the lunar Sabbath. Because we don't take the time to look at the big picture. Remember, Yehovah's word has got to be defined within Yehovah's word. I just this year brought fire to Yehovah on Shavuot, thinking I was doing what I was supposed to do. I realized later I was wrong. Forgot what he says in Numbers 28. Maybe 29 for Shavuot. For Passover, we're talking about Numbers 28. I put if these 7 days represent 7,000 years, what do the first year and the 7th year have in common? What do they have in common? Is there something that they have in common? Will the millennial kingdom be similar to the antediluvian world? Wouldn't that be neat? Wouldn't it be great to have a covering over the earth once again? Water above, water below. Have that climate in which a man and a woman can live 1,000 years. Whew, sounds good to me. Why day of rest? Look what it says here. These are the things which Israel's seed brings to Yehovah's fire. What does it say? You shall bring fire to Yehovah 7 days. Well, a literal meaning of that, bring fire. Okay, I'm going to build a fire. That's what I did. I built a fire. Had a great fire going. Blew my shofar. But I realized I missed something. Numbers 28. Because I didn't understand line upon line. I did, but I just forgot. Didn't understand line upon line. Let's go there. I'm going to read 16 to 24, okay? This is the fire that we're going to bring. 16 to 24 to Yehovah on this day. The first day. On the 14th day of the first month is the Passover. And on the 15th day, we're going to bring our lamb or our goats on the 14th day, aren't we? On the 15th day of this month is the feast. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days. On the first day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. You shall present, here it is right here, you shall bring by fire an olah unto Yehovah, 2 bulls of the first year, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs. A tamim, a whole, unto Yehovah. Alive and whole is what we're talking about. Alive and whole unto Yehovah. We're going to bring them, but we're going to slaughter them there. What does it say? They're going to be an olah. These are the olahs. He goes on. He says, bring them with their minka. Their minka shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 7/10 of an ephah. You shall offer a bull with 2/10. You shall, with oil, 3/10. You shall offer for a bull and 2/10 for a ram. Remember, the minkas, the grain offering, sometimes it's unleavened bread, it's different things. A memorial of it's going to go into the altar with the fat. If it's a burnt offering, then the whole thing is going to go on. But a memorial is going to go on for the minka, and the remainder of it is going to go to the priests. He says you shall offer 1/10 of an ephah for each of the lambs. So 3/10 of an ephah, 2/10, that was for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, 2/10 for the lambs. These are female lambs. What do you say about that? Bull and each of the lambs. And 7 lambs. Usually a ram is a sheep. So I'm surprised they're saying 7 lambs of the first year. Must be young sheep. So we got an older sheep and then young sheep, I suppose is what's going on. Okay. Also, this is all the things that we're going to bring during this week. Also, 1 goat as a kata'ah. There's a goat, kata'ah, to make a covering for you. You shall bring these besides the olah of the morning, which is a regular burnt offering, besides the normal burnt offering that we're going to bring. In this manner, you shall bring the food. I've rewritten so many of these. In this manner, you shall do daily for 7 days. Food by fire, a sweet aroma to Yehovah, besides the continual olah and the drink. Talking about the daily olah that we do in the morning and we do in the evening, when he's putting out the candles and when he's lighting the candles for the following nights. On the 7th day, I said we're going to go to 26. On the 7th day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall do no customary work. Also this is talking about Shavuot, so I don't want to go to 26. I want to go to 25. So we said, in this manner you shall offer the food of the offerings made by fire daily for 7 days as a sweet aroma to Yehovah. We're going to stop at 25 then. Yeah. All right, let's go back. Again, line upon line, we got to see more. There's more going on that we've got to understand. (23:8). Verse 9, and Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to who? Israel's seed, and say to them, when you come into the land, which I give you, and reap its harvest. Speak to Israel's seed and say to them, when you come into the land which I give to you, Israel's seed is going to get the land. Belongs to Israel's seed, not the ger. When the ger become Israel's seed, they can expand our debts, and we can expand our lands to include more land for them. But not now. They have to become Ezra first. Speak to Israel's seed. When you come into the land, you shall reap its harvest, which I give to you, and reap its harvest. You shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. This is during Passover. There's 7 days. During that 7-day period, there's going to be a Sabbath, and the following day is going to be Shavuot. I know it gets a little tricky, but we're talking about the beginning of the count towards Shavuot. But there's, how do I say that? During the 7 days, well, here, let's read it here. Maybe it'll be more clean. You shall bring a sheaf of first fruits of your harvest. You shall bring a feast. Who's the you? Talking about Israel's seed of our harvest to the priest. He shall wave the sheaf before Yehovah's face to be accepted on your behalf. It says, on the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. It's going to be a different day every year. It doesn't say on the 17th day. The Jews, I think, do it all the time on the 16th day because they treat the Sabbath, the 15th day Sabbath, that we have no work being done, as the Sabbath, when in fact we're supposed to be using this weekly Sabbath, the Sabbath that falls during the week. So it's always going to be on a Sunday. The Jews do it differently. Doesn't work. And it screws up other things as well. It says, on the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. Let me look at my notes here. The Feast of Yehovah, or the Feast of Unleavened Bread, is 7 days. And, of course, it has a Saturday. The day after that Saturday is the first fruit, barley day. Remember, we're talking about what? Ha-Aviv. We were just reading about Ha-Aviv. The month of the Aviv. We are going to have grain that we're going to bring to Yehovah if we're in the land. If the barley's not Aviv, we can't bring our barley, can we? Because it's not ready to give to the priests. We have to have that barley ready. And this is where this year was a good example of this. Some people didn't want to keep, was it this year that we had a 13th month? I believe it was. Some of the people didn't want to have a 13th month because they said, oh, well, we found Aviv. There's Aviv. I found it in the valley. But the whole place has got to be Aviv. If the whole place is not Aviv, one little piece of Aviv is not going to work. Because every Ezra man has to bring his barley, his first fruits, to Yehovah during the feast. This is why we went to a 13th month, because it wasn't all over Israel. It's got to be all over Israel so that every man can bring his barley, his first fruits, to the priest so he can wave it before Yehovah. He goes on. No, let me read my notes here. I see barley as being a sort of low-grade animal food. The wheat as the food, and wheat as food for men. Could this have something to do with the first birth and the second birth? You know what? I theorize a lot. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We're doing it during the barley harvest. How does that work with firstborn, natural born versus spiritual born men? Remember, it happens, the spiritual born men happens at Passover. Of course, I'll be spiritually born men by then, but still, I don't know if that makes a difference. So he humbled you, allowed you to hunger, and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know. You, nor your fathers, not your mothers, that he might make you know that Ha-Adam shall not live by bread alone, but Ha-Adam shall live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yehovah. Understanding who Ha-Adam is really goes all the way back to Genesis 2 and 3. Yehovah created Ha-Adam in his image and his likeness. He created the woman from the man. He's talking to men right now, and man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word. What does it say? But man lives by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yehovah. Ooh, I know in this day and age where we have made women men, this is not a happy verse. We have to get over it. We have to look deeper into the scriptures. I can show you things over and over and over again that Yehovah is talking to men. Yehovah never even talked to the woman until she overstepped her man's boundary. And only then did he say, your desire shall be for your man and he shall rule over you. That's not new. That's a reminder. You're his aid. His aid's suitable. Let's go on. And you shall bring forth on that day when you wave the sheaf. What are we going to bring? A male lamb of the first year, living and whole for an olah to Yehovah. A ram is a lamb. Olahs are always males. There are no female olah offerings. They're always male offerings. So that makes sense that they would say a male lamb. Again, not without blemish, just whole and alive. It's tamim. As your olah. Its grain, its minka, shall be 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil. By fire, mixed by oil. Here, I guess I've got it here. Mixed by fire. No, I don't have it there. Shall be 2/10 of fine flour mixed with oil by fire to Yehovah for a sweet aroma, and its nasink, or not nasek, and its nasek. There it is right there, and nasek, libation, and its drink of wine 1/4 of a hin. Remember, a portion of it's going to go into the fire. Memorial is going to go into the fire. The rest of it's going to be the priests. 14. You shall eat neither bread, nor parched grain, nor fresh grain. Hear that? Bread, parched grain. Parched grain, it's probably like a popcorn, making popcorn out of a barley perhaps. Fresh grain until the same day that you have brought an offering to Yehovah. Here, and bread, nor cooked grain, nor green grain. You shall not eat until the day you have brought your korban. Korban, okay, that's offering. That's one of the good reasons they use offering there. That's correct. Korban to your Elohim, a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. And you shall come for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath. Remember what happened on the day after the Sabbath? That was the day that we're bringing our grain to Yehovah, our barley harvest. What do they call that? The sheaf of barley that the priest is going to wave before Yehovah. It's going to go to the priest. It belongs to the priests. He gets the first fruits. So he waves it, and then he puts it in his storehouse. And you shall come for yourselves from the day after the Sabbath, from the day which you brought the sheaf of the wave. Let's not even go with the offering. It's not there. The sheaf of the wave. 7 Sabbaths shall be completed. This is the day after. What did it say? The day after the Sabbath. That's one day plus 7 Sabbaths. 49 days. 49 plus 1 is 50 days. Shall be completed. Now he says, count 50 days. To the day after the 7th Sabbath. To the day after the 7th Sabbath. You shall offer new grain offerings to Yehovah. So we've got 2 ways that we can figure Shavuot. 7 Sabbaths and a day, or 50 days. If you're going to use the lunar Sabbath calendar and you have all those crazy weeks on it, you're never going to have 50 days and 49 plus 1 day. I think Yehovah actually gave us 2 ways to determine Shavuot so that we don't follow nonsensical ideas like this lunar Sabbath. You know what? I'm not going to say, how should I say this? It's not that people are doing this day in rebellion to Yehovah. It's really more that they're doing a lunar Sabbath out of ignorance. Ignorance isn't bad. Ignorance is just ignorant. We don't know the whole story. We haven't followed it. We've read somebody's account and it sounded good to us at the time, and so we went with it. But we've never really looked at the scriptures to see how it all fits together. When we read Numbers 29, it's going to talk about the new moon offering. You'll see those things don't work. It doesn't work when we see it in light of other scriptures. But when we're just hearing somebody read something to you and we don't know the scriptures well enough, we fall for those ideas. Here, I even put it. The lunar Sabbath just started popping up a few years ago and is simply not supported in the scriptures. In Leviticus 23, our Father gives us 2 ways to find Shavuot. Both must work. That was in 15 and it was in 15. Both of these ways determine Shavuot. Both of these ways for determining Shavuot must come out on the same day. If they don't come out on the same day, you know you got something wrong. I think Yehovah gave us 2 ways to expose crazy ideas. Crazy ideas. Maybe that's the word I was using, crazy ideas. It's crazy ideas followed by ignorant people. They don't know line upon line, precept upon precept, and they fall into these schemes that just don't work. And so then they're keeping a Sabbath on all kinds of crazy days. And boy, you try to work and try and keep a lunar Sabbath with your workplace, most workplaces will work with you on a Sabbath. They will. But you start doing a lunar Sabbath, they're going to think you're nuts. I think Yehovah gave us 2 ways to expose crazy ideas like the lunar Sabbath, but people who have never learned the scriptures will easily fall for these lies. Sorry, I don't mean to keep ranking on lunar Sabbatarians, but we've got to get these things correct. Count 50 days, 17. He says, and you shall bring from your dwellings 2 waves of 2 waves. You know what? That wave, I think it was teruma. Let's take a look at it. What is that word for wave? I'm just curious. 2 waves. Tenufa, brandishing. This is going to be leavened bread. The other one for Passover was unleavened bread. You shall bring from your dwellings 2 it says loaves of 2 ephah. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baked with leaven. There it is right there. They are the first fruits to Yehovah. Ye shall bring, and you shall bring with the bread 7 lambs of the first year, alive and whole. 1 young bull, 2 rams. Again, rams are more sheep. First year. It seems like they use lambs when they're talking about of the first year, kind of like our lamb or goat that we bring on Passover is going to be a lamb of the first year, less than 1 year old. They shall be as olah offerings. So these are all going to be males. As olah to Yehovah with their grain and their nesek by fire for a sweet aroma to Yehovah. Now, here's the word sacrifice. I'll tell you again, there is no word for sacrifice in Torah. That is a made-up word. We either kill an animal as an olah, or if it's going to come as a sin offering, we're going to still kill it. But in that particular case, we don't eat it. So that's why they use shakat for killing it. But the priest is going to eat it. Fat's going to be burned on the altar, and then the food becomes the priest's food. They call it food to Yehovah. Interesting, they would call it food to Yehovah. He gets the sweet aroma, but in a sense, the priests get the food, don't they? So, talking about sacrifice, here it is. This is a word that they're using, asah. And you shall bring asah, make. You shall make. With 7 breads, make with the bread 7 lambs of the first year, says without blemish, alive and whole. 1 young bull, 2 rams, they shall be as an olah to Yehovah with their mincha and their nesek by fire, a sweet aroma to Yehovah. On this particular one, that was, I must have read the wrong verse, didn't I? This is the verse we're on. Then you shall make 1 kid of goats as a kata'ah. Kata'ah, remember, it's about repairing the breach, returning back to Yehovah. 2 male lambs of the first year as a slaughtered shalamim. Here it is, for a slaughtered zavik. Remember, if it's talking about a zavik, it's something that's going to be eaten. A savik, slaughtered shalamim. That's shalamim. It's the shalem, but it's the plural form, shalem. And the priest shall wave with the bread of the first fruits. Actually, I reread this one. He shall wave the first fruits bread. The first fruits. For first fruit, food. Food. We want to make that bread all the time, but I don't think we're talking about bread. I think we're talking about food. Watch what we're talking about. He shall wave the first fruits food. Wave to Nufa before Yehovah's face. They say before Yehovah. It always says before Yehovah's face. Panim. Face. With the 2 lambs. The 2 breasts that come from the lambs. That's what he's going to wave. The breasts that are going to be up there with the bread that he's going to wave before Yehovah. His own hands, this is Leviticus 7. His own hands, remember we're talking about the kata'ah. His own hands shall bring the offering made by fire, the kata'ah made by fire, the fat with the breast he shall bring, that the breast may be waved as a wave offering before Yehovah's face. Hear that? He's waving the breasts from these 2 lambs before Yehovah's face. And you shall proclaim on the same day that it is a holy convocation to you. You shall do no customary work. Remember, we're still talking about Shavuot here. All this is about Shavuot. And you shall proclaim on the same day that it is a holy convocation, a holy mikra, a meeting with Yehovah. You shall do no customary work on it. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. Who's the Yar? Is he talking to any Egyptians, Assyrians, or Babylonians? The answer is no, no, no. He's talking to Israel's seed, their dwellings throughout their generations. Now, look what he says. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field. Remember, we're talking about Shavuot. We're talking about bringing in the harvest, bringing in the first fruits to the priest, waving them before Yehovah. He says, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field when you reap, nor shall you gather any gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. Hear that? The poor and the stranger. That's the poor and the ger. The ger. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. If we're leaving him for the ger, he's not talking to the ger, is he? He's talking to Israel's seed. Look at Leviticus 19. He says similar things. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall, here, let me do this. Gotta keep it in more. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, and you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the ger. I am Yehovah, your Elohim. We're going to leave them for the poor and the ger. It says it again twice. Then Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to who? Israel's seed, saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, you shall have a Sabbath rest, a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of it says blowing of trumpets. Here's what it actually says. Speak unto Israel's seed, saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st day of the month, ye shall have a Sabbath, a memorial of shouting. A memorial of shouting. A terumah. It's the day of teruah. Yom Teruah. Ye shall have a Sabbath. A memorial of shouting, a holy convocation. You know, I think this is when this day, oh man, it must have been back in 2000, when my eyes started seeing, I was going to a Messianic Jewish congregation. It was probably more Jewish than it was Messianic. Not that I'm Messianic by any means. But they were all yelling, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah. I thought, this is New Year's. They're celebrating New Year's in the first day of the 7th month. How does that even work? How can we disengage our brains so much to call this the New Year, the first day of the 7th month? It doesn't make sense. But they were all doing it. And I thought, how can we do this? Don't we read the scriptures? Well, I knew there was a problem, and I think things began to change after that particular day for me. I wrote an article about Yom Teruah. Here's the link to it if you want to follow that link. You shall do no customary work on it, and you shall do no work, nor service, and you shall bring fire to Yehovah. Bring fire to Yehovah. They added, bring an offering made by fire to Yehovah. In a sense, they're demonstrating that they do have more understanding, but they should have put it in gray. They could have grayed it out, and it probably would have been okay. But to say an offering made by fire, it's not there. But again, if we go to Numbers 29, we're going to see what we're supposed to bring to the fire of Yehovah. But you shall bring fire to Yehovah. Well, what fire are we supposed to bring to Yehovah? That's what we have to ask ourselves, and that's what we have to learn. And Yehovah spoke, saying, on the 10th day of the 7th month. So that was the first day of the 7th month. Now we're going to do the 10th day of the 7th month. We call this day Yom Kippurim, the day of coverings. On this day, the high priest is going to make a covering for the altar, really the ark, for the tabernacle, for his family, we're talking about all the other priests, and, the bronze altar, and all Israel. If you're not Israel, you're not covered on that day. You've got to become Israel. I think this is one of the reasons why the first feast in the year is Passover. It's the day that we become the Ezra man. Don't become the Ezra man. You're not going to be covered. Israel is the one that's covered on this day, not the Egyptians, not the Assyrians, and not the Babylonians. Okay, carry it through. Not the U.S. citizens, not the Canadians, not the South Africans. We've got more to learn. We have made Yehovah's word, we polluted it. Believe in Jesus and you become Israel. Where does that even come from? Ridiculous. Does Yehovah change or not? Do we become Israel a different way now? The answer is no. It doesn't work like that. And Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, on the 10th day of the 7th month shall be a day of coverings. Day of coverings. There it is right there. Day of coverings. Kippurim. Kippur. They want to make it, that's where it comes from. A holy convocation shall it be to you. Therefore ye shall humble your souls and bring fire unto Yehovah. What is the fire that we're going to bring? Again, that's in Numbers 29. But humble your souls. Humble your souls. I thought, this is really an interesting word. They say afflict your souls. I like this word, humble your souls. I think it's more in line with what Yehovah is asking of us. I thought I had more about that. Let me see if I got something more here or here. Yeah, not afflicted. Humbled. I talk about this in a series of articles I wrote for this particular day. You'll find them on my website here. Let me show you where it is. I think it's important that you see these. It's right here. If we go to the Feast of Yehovah, right now we're talking about Yom Kippurim. And I've got Yom Kippurim. I've got afflict your soul, or afflict you. Let's see, I can't even see it. Make this a little bit smaller, maybe we can see it. Here it is. Afflict your souls and the two goats. What does it mean to afflict your souls? This is a day where we're looking inward. What am I doing? Am I doing the things that Yehovah requires of me? If I'm not, this is a day of repentance, of looking inward. We want to make our life. You remember, Yehovah, he's going to do these two goats. Why two goats? One is going to live, one is going to die. I see this as a last days, how should I say, sign. When we're in the wilderness, just before we are released, like Noah's was, from the destruction that's going to come on the earth. Remember, there's going to be destruction by fire the second time. Just before we're released, we're going to be taken into the wilderness. Some of the goats are going to die. Some of the goats are going to live. They look alike. They're all goats. We always make goats the bad guys and lambs the good guys, don't we? Don't go there. We're all goats. There's two goats. One's going to live, one's going to die. Yehovah knows the heart of a man. He says the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yehovah, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man, every ish, according to his deeds, according to the fruit of his doings. This is a day that we want to have our heart right before Yehovah. We want to be the good goats that are going to be released and live into the next millennia. The rest are going to die. Yehovah knows the heart, and that's why he shakes the lot. I'm using it like dice. But it's probably similar to 2 stones, 1 black stone, 1 white stone. Put it in the pouch. Pick a one. Okay, this is going to be yours. This is going to be heads or tails. Yehovah knows the toss. He knows. We want to be on the good toss. The one that lives. Everyone else is going to perish. During the days of darkness, Yasher talks about, there was men who did not want to follow Yehovah. We were getting ready to go into the promised land, but there was men that didn't want to follow Yehovah, and they died. Egyptians didn't even know they died because it was dark for them. They had their own problems. They died, we buried them, and they never even knew it. That's probably what's going to happen during these last days, when Yehovah raises up his men, his servants, puts a pillar of fire over them, and people begin to come to them. They're going to look good on the outside, but their hearts not with Yehovah. And this is going to be the day that he's going to separate one from the other. Anyway, I think you'd find it interesting reading if you were to go through those articles. Let me go back to where I was. Okay. Talking about the Day of Atonement. They want to say Day of Atonement. The Day of Coverings. Yom Kippurim. It shall be a holy convocation to you. You shall humble your souls and bring fire to Yehovah. Remember, we know what that fire is going to be. We'll see it. And you shall do no work on that same day, for it is a day of coverings, to make a covering for you before your Elohim. You know, I was talking about this being men. The heart is deceitful above other things. Desperately, Yehovah, just the heart, searches the mind to give every man according to his deeds, according to the fruit of his actions. Man, man, man. Just like Noah, a man after Yehovah's own heart, a man who followed Yehovah, when he was saved, his women and his sons and their wives, they were saved also. That's how it's going to be a second time. It may be servants that go with us as well. It appears that it is from Joel chapter 2. We'll see. Let's go on. And you shall do no work on that same day, for it is a day of coverings, to make a covering from you before Yehovah. Any person who is not humbled, not afflicted, not humbled in soul on that same day shall be cut off from his people. This is why I say Yehovah is going to decide who it is that's going to be cut off. And any person who does any work on that day, that person shall be destroyed from among his people. He goes on, you shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Now listen to what he says. In light of all this, don't work on this day. This is Yom Kippurim. He says this, it shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest, and you shall humble your souls on the 9th day of the month at evening. From evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. Hear that? Evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. I think that this is just one more spot in the Torah. The other spot I saw was the evening of the 15th day to the evening of the 21st day. We were going to eat not eat unleavened bread, evening to evening. Here we are again, yet again. 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. This is how our days run from evening to evening. I have ongoing talks with people about they want to make it day to day, morning to morning. That's our day. Or some even make it morning to evening. Morning to evening. They skip the night altogether. Yeah, Yehovah said he created the night, and the day was the first day. What do they do with that? Again, they pick a couple scriptures that they like, and they want to make that the day. So now, can we? In that understanding, we're gonna have a Sabbath from morning till night, and so then at night we can do what we want. We can work. We could get a second job. No, that's ridiculous. Evening to evening is Yehovah's days. Then Yehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Israel's seed. Again, we're speaking to Israel's seed. This is the 15th day of the 7th month. You know what? I have so much that I want to talk about on this particular day. I started this class today by talking about who it is that's going to dwell in these tents. And we're going to talk about that in the last 3 verses of this chapter. But I can already see that I've got from 34 to 44, 10 verses. I'm not going to get through it all today. I'm going to wait till next week, and we're going to talk about the Feast of Ingatherings. Sukkot is what we're talking about. Feast of Tabernacles. Sukkot. Feast of Ingatherings. It's got lots of different names. But we're going to talk about that. I think we're going to wait until next week. So let's do that. And I'm going to bid you adieu for today. We've been going for an hour and a half. That's long enough time. I don't want to overwhelm you. And there's a lot of really great things that we need to talk about in this. So let's do it again next week, okay? Love you tons. Thank you for joining me today. Please come again. There's lots for us to learn. This is going to be really important, what we learn next week, as to who Israel's seed is. You know, you can't hardly make it more clear than this. We saw it in Leviticus 17, and we saw it in Leviticus 19. Now we're going to see it again in Leviticus 23. These Ezra men, these Israel's seed, B'nai Israel, they are all the same men. We've got to understand that. Who is Israel? Israel is the men who have cut covenant with Yehovah by slaughter, his Kassid men. God kind, Kassid is what that is. God kind. Isn't that cool? You know, we were created, men, we were created to be God kind. We were created in his image and in his likeness. But we became Belial kind, rebellious men who turned away from Yehovah. This is the good news. Yehovah reigns. He can be your Elohim. You can serve only him. I want to teach you to serve only Yehovah. But we can't serve only Yehovah and keep the covenants that we have with the world. They are going to become our destruction. We just can't do it. So we learn to live differently. We leave the kingdom of our birth. We become Ger, who dwells with the Ezra. And then at Passover, the Ger circumcise themselves, eat the Passover lamb, draw near, eat the Passover lamb, and become the Ezra. That's what it says. It's Exodus 12:48. We circumcise ourselves, all the men of our household, and draw near and become the Ezra men. It's a beautiful picture. It's how we become Elohim kind, his Chesed. And if you do a study on the Chesed, you can start at Psalms 50, verse 5. Do a study on all the places where it talks about the Chesed. You'll begin to see some of those things. It's a beautiful picture. We become Elohim kind. Those are the men who are going to dwell on the earth. Those are the righteous men that serve before Yehovah. You're not righteous for doing deeds. You are, but you're not. Unless you're going to become his Chesed first. Then your righteousness is going to mean something. Well, there's more to the story. This is not an easy road. It's not about believe in your heart. Confess with your mouth. No, it's about changing your life. Repentance, deep repentance, like Abraham had when he left Babylon, when he left Haran and learned to dwell in the land of promise as in a strange country. He dwelt in heaven, and that's what we have to learn to do, is dwell in heaven, not in America, and certainly not in the corporation of the United States. Well, so much to learn, so little time. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you again next week. Love you tons. Bye now.